Welcome to Serenity Rising, Healing with Cancer. I'm Bron Watson, and I want to welcome you to not just a podcast, but to a community, a new way of seeing, feeling, and walking through the chaos of cancer. My guest today came to Serenity Rising through a door I hadn't opened yet. He's not a patient or a survivor. He hasn't lost a family member to cancer. He's actually an educator, a New York State Senate-funded dyslexia researcher. And cancer has walked into his classroom, into the lives of the children he works with, into the families who trust him. Russell Van Brocklen was severely dyslexic himself. He was told as a child that he would never read at grade level. He went on to read and write at graduate level and to build a method that has moved struggling students from middle school writing to graduate level work in a single school year, with every one of those students going on to graduate college. But today, we're not here to talk about dyslexia. We're here because of a student he calls Jennifer, a name chosen to protect her identity at her family's request, a commitment Russell and I both have kept without hesitation. Jennifer was a dyslexic child already fighting to keep up when cancer entered her world, with one of her family members having a diagnosis of cancer not once, but twice when it came back. But what Russell gave Jennifer was not pity. It was a method, a daily anchor, a way to rebuild agency in a life that had lost all predictability. Russell, welcome to Serenity Rising.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Russell, before we go anywhere, I want to ask you first. You were told as a child that you would never read at grade level. But what was that like to be told that? And what actually happened?
Well, I didn't learn to read or write until I literally went to audit law school classes after college.
Wow.
And what happened was kind of a shock. Just why I did that. I did the New York State Assembly internship program. I showed up with a first grade reading and writing level. They accommodated me. I mean, they spent an outrageous amount of money. They went right to the speaker's office and they did these insane accommodations, which my college didn't like. So they, instead of the 15 credits of A minus, they flunked me with 15 credits of F. Still there 29 years later. Only time it ever happened in the program. So I decided I was going to solve dyslexia for everybody else. I asked my professors where I could go to force myself to learn to read and write. They said, if you like political science, if you like working in the legislature, if you like laws, it's obvious, law school. So it was the second day of contracts. What they do in American law schools, they use this thing called the Socratic method. If you don't know the answer, which nobody does the first week, they will ask you questions you can't answer to embarrass you publicly until you eventually adapt. So that didn't happen to me. The professor was a professor longer than I was alive at that point. Okay.
Right.
And so he asked me the question and I responded correctly. So he's asked me more questions. He's trying to go after me. Then I answer. Then I start going after him.
Wow.
Which, you see the look on his face.
I could
We're going
imagine.
back and forth as hard as we can at each other. I know where he's going. He's know where I'm going, moves ahead. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. He throws up his arms, says, Russell, you couldn't be any more correct. In the interest of time, I have to move on to the next case. I learned to read in about a month. I learned to write within a couple of years.
Wow. But that all came from you too, Like what I hear, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that your determination to find the solution, which was not the solution that everybody else had.
Oh, and what I do is just what the solution is. It's freaking ridiculous and simple. Just what happened then. I then went back to the New York State Senate. I asked them to fund me. It took years and years. Then I got funding for 2 years for the Beaver Park Central School District, my old high school right outside of Albany, New York, our state capital. I focused only on the super motivated, super intelligent dyslexic students. They were juniors and seniors, think 16 to 18, reading and writing at the middle school level, think 12, 13. One class period a day through the school year, they increased from the middle school level to the average range of entering graduate students. They all went out of college, all graduated GPAs of 2.5 to 3.6. Compared to the best dyslexic transfer college at the time, Landmark College, we were 3x as successful for less than 1% of the cost. So how do we
Wow.
do that? Well, this is so simple. I have literally had 10-year-olds understand why I'm doing it this way. This is the top book on dyslexia. It's called Overcoming Dyslexia by Dr. Sally Shaywitz from Yale. That's dyslexia. So the back part of this brain, this is a normal brain. This is kindergarten through the first 2 years of college. Dyslectic's got nothing going on here. The front part's 2.5 times overactive. This is word analysis followed by articulation. This is grad school. Here's grad school. So I got 2.5 times the neural activity. That's why I dominated so well.
Right. Wow. Okay. That is so fascinating. Well done you. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So, all right. So let's get started. When cancer enters a family and when it specifically enters the life of a child who's already got a learning difference, as you've just explained, what happens that most people never see coming?
Really, what happens is it depends on the child, and there's two general frameworks to look at. The first one comes from a family where when the kid's 2 and 3 or so around that age group, the parents understand this really important word called no. So that by the time the child's 5 years old, they're about 70% of who they're going to be at 18. They're already basically formed, and it's about 95% at 12.
Yeah.
So for those kids, what tends, and that's going to be the one that I'm going to focus on, is that's what I generally deal with. One of two things happens as they grow up. Number one, they're either going to become incredibly motivated or they're going to be crushed by dyslexia. Because no matter how hard they try, just, again, what's going on, the school's testing this and they got nothing going on back here. So they just get crushed. They either become, I'm so motivated, I'm going to keep banging my head against the wall to solve this, or I'm just going to be flattened as a person. Now, of those two, when they find out that a parent has cancer, what happens is for the motivated kid is when I'm talking to them, they're confused and they don't know what to do.
Right.
So then what I use a technique where I use a universal theme to focus on what it is that they want to do. And it allows them, because if you ask a dyslexic in their speciality, in their area of extreme interest and ability, do you have ideas flying around their head at light speed, but we'll go to an organization, they're going to say yes. So if you try to give them instructions that's big picture, and then eventually getting down to the details, they don't know how to process that. We got to flip that. So we start off with something very specific and we slowly go out from there. So what I would say to them is, just because they're confused, I would ask, so what is it that you want to do? And they said, well, I want to help my parent. They very much try to step into the adult role, but they just don't know how. So then what I would do is I would say, what you need to do is you need to talk to an extremely trusted adult who both knows your parents very well, but who you can trust. Typically, it's a godfather or a godmother or somebody similar. And then we'll say, just go and sit down and talk with them. And what I want you to do, and I don't care about spelling, grammar, or anything, just sit down with them and type out everything that you can. You type out everything you can on that you could possibly do to help your parents. And then what I do is I say, this is one of the only times I cheat. I put it in the artificial intelligence. Because normally until they write advanced body paragraphs, I don't want them going near for academic reasons.
Yeah, right.
So then I say, take all this stuff, and most people use ChatGPT. So I'm saying, if you're doing it $20 a month for something like this, spend the $20 a month, at least for a month. Set it on 5.5 extended thinking, or not thinking, but extended thinking. And we just dump it in. And when I say, tell me what the kid is trying to say. And then we'll go through a process where we work with the kid, and I'll say, I need this reduced to a one-word universal thing.
Wow.
Okay, so I start off by doing that. I'll say, listen, give me as many universal things with custom definitions that this probably what they're trying to say. And then I'll have the kid pick the one that best represents what's in their head. And then I'll come up with 100 synonyms with custom definitions.
Yeah.
And I'll say, based on what the kid liked, give me the top 10 of what you came up with. Then the kid keeps picking them until they got a word and a definition that best represents what they're trying to do, what they can do. Because remember, you have
Yes.
like an adult that knows the parents and the kid very well, helping them figure out what is it that the kid can do. And we knock that down to a one-word universal thing where
Yeah.
the definition best matches what's in their head. That's
Yeah.
called word analysis. Then we're going to articulate. We're going to use that as a lens because the front part of the brain deals with word analysis followed by articulation. I'll then say, working with the AI, how can we use what the kid can do going through this word and this universal thing, this word and this definition as a lens, what exactly can they do? Give me the top
Yeah.
3 things. And then I will then go and say, okay, these are the 3 things you can do to help your parents. And they know exactly what it is, exactly why it is. And I'll say, take this, go back to your godfather, godmother, whoever that person is, and figure out how you can implement this. Exactly. And I tell them, you have to explain to the dyslexic kid a very specific point, eventually going out. If you go big picture and eventually down to the details, it's like grabbing fog. So then they go and they start doing that. And they feel really good. The parents feel good because, they see the kids doing okay. Now, that's for the motivated kid. They're kind of rare. Now, if you've got a kid who's just been crushed by dyslexia, and now the parents, because now everybody in the family, no offense, but learning to read and write takes a back seat to mom or dad, living. They're in so much pain from the chemo. It's tough.
Yeah.
So then I try to go through the same process, but I have to be much more delicate.
Right.
And I would say, don't worry, we can take care of school later, but your parents could use some help and you don't know how to do it. And they're almost crying because they don't know. They can't communicate it. And I just go through that process a bit slower, but I have to pull in an adult who they trust the most, even if they don't know the family as well. And then that adult, I'll give you a hint, it's maybe a minister. A lot of times people are surprised by this. It's the minister's wife.
Wow.
Especially if it's a girl. You'd be so shocked at how many boys get intimidated by their minister or their religious leader. In Scouts, it could be a scoutmaster.
Yeah,
it's somebody.
It's someone who's trusted.
I had one issue like that where it was the teacher from last year.
What?
Okay. And then I had the teacher's like, I don't know what to do with this. And I explained how. I said, you're the communicator between the kid and the kid's, whoever it is that knows the family well. I said, I know you didn't ask for this. You're here because the kid trusts you more than anybody else. And that facilitation, until then the kid finally figures it out and they go and start doing things. And it's a relief from the parents that, it's one less thing that they're worried about. And then when the kid's feeling up to it, then I can go and start working with the kid about overcoming the reading and writing issues. We can do that in a much more accelerated manner using the front part of the brain than what everybody else is using. But eventually, especially when it really gets difficult is when it's terminal and it's terminal. And the only thing I can tell the parents is after you're gone, we'll take care of this. But the kid's not doing anything.
Would you say that? Would you actually say that to the parent?
I do tell that to the parents.
Wow, that's so courageous. I just want to pause there for a second and say that is courageous that you can have that conversation because, a lot of people tap dance around words and language when things are not awesome. So thank you for that because, what that does, of course, is encourage and provide comfort, I think, for the family that the child is going to be cared for in the way they learn. That's what I think. When I think dyslexia, when I think autism, when I think ADHD, I'm thinking that these kids are being cared for and educated in a way that works with their brain rather than, what everyone loves to call the neurotypical brain, whatever that is
Right.
anymore.
But what typically happens is like anything put in a will. They're not that, when the parent gives the terminal notice, we're talking weeks to months where they know that they're on the way out. Hope has been removed.
Mm.
So what happens is I say, you do not want to go to your deathbed just leaving it behind somebody you don't trust. I will tell them, pick a teacher that you trust. And then I train that teacher. And then the teacher who has been at some point a critical part of their life says, I will take care of this. No, I'm not you're in Australia, I'm in upstate New York. The distance is too great for any trust like that. But if I was dealing with somebody, it's just too much. But if I was dealing with, let's say you had a kid or a grandkid who's going through this, all right, and there's a local teacher, and then I trained the local teacher, it doesn't take long. It takes a day or two. That's it, because they're professionals. Then they can go back to the cancer patient and saying, I got this. I know exactly what to do.
Right. Wow, that is so powerful.
That's how you have to handle this.
I love because in some ways, because I have an incurable cancer, and recently I've had someone throw the terminal word at me, because if you do look online, that's the word that'll come up for multiple myeloma, but that is not actually what's happening with me. So I get a bit funny with the word terminal, but I mean, I know that it's there. And and that's my trigger. So just so you know, everyone, that's Bron's. It's not anyone else's on how we handle that. So what I would add there, as now that because we are talking with people living through cancer and their families, is be mindful on how that person is addressing their own mortality. And we work with that. So, because and again, it's purely from what I love is the fact that there's so much honesty here. Right. We've got a lot of transparency and a lot of honesty. And I thank you for that. And also I thank me and the Serenity Project for that as well, because that's what we're here for, is to have these conversations that other people may or may not want to address. But I think when you're talking with a child living with a family in that situation, we got to keep it real.
Yeah. But when it comes to what is the diagnosis, I'm like, that's between you and your doctor.
Yes.
That's between you and your support staff. Like, what you do, you're qualified to talk about this. I have zero credibility.
No, but that's not what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah. But when it comes to how do we take care of the kid, what I try to tell them is the best thing you can do is find a certified teacher.
Yeah.
All right. I can then train that teacher, and then that teacher in your area takes over that responsibility. And I have done things where we're going to step outside of cancer and terminal things, but just where, like I was dealing with one military family. Mom was going to be gone for a very long time to be deployed. Not going any further than that, just gone for a long time. So what I did is I trained their minister's wife, because just to be honest with you, for what I do, it's 90% women thing. I go to a dyslexia convention. I swear I'm one of the handful of guys in the entire building. I'm just absolutely serious about that. So what I do is I then train the minister's wife how to do this. Was she a teacher? No, but she was an English major. So I showed her the process. Took a little longer than typical with a teacher, but she learned it very rapidly. And then she'd, occasionally text me a question. So she went and took care of it. Now the mom knew that her kid was going to be okay because it was the minister's wife taking care of it. That's, you want somebody in your orbit. And some of the more extreme cases, I was dealing with one kid. I swear, this is absolutely true. It was down by Texas at Austin, and there was they were in an upper middle class neighborhood, but they just got divorced, so the finances went apart. And his name was Drake. All right, he was a genius. I don't know what his IQ was, but it was really high. His
Mm.
14-year-old neighbor was an 8th grade cheerleader. Drake was 10 in 5th grade.
Mm.
She was 14 going on 40, if you know what I mean.
I
All right.
do.
You know teenage girls like that. She went
Yeah.
over and got Drake to do things nobody else could do within a matter of months. Remember, she's teaching this. He is now an AB student because of 14 years. And I just taught the girl. I barely talked to Drake.
Mm.
His mom
I
was
love this.
ecstatic.
It's such an interesting way that you'll find. This is what I love about, because obviously I have a Master's of Education. I'm an educator. I've taught at university, college, workplace. So as an educator, what I love, and this is what I think that people who are in educators is that you're honing the craft. You're honing the ability to the child, not the child to the system. You know, like you're finding the right person to be able to deliver the method so that the child understands it. So I think that's a very, very positive and interesting way. And remembering we're focusing on dyslexia here. But now there's one thing I want to ask you about this is that you say you start where a child is strongest, but not where they are at their weakest. Why does that matter so much, especially if the child has already lost so much control in their life when it comes to having a parent with a disease such as cancer or serious adversity?
Okay. Let me just answer this way. People have a hard time understanding the reasons for this question. So after doing almost 300 podcasts, I found a way to answer that works well. The sport that I suck at is basketball. I'm horrible. What sport do you suck at?
Me?
Yes. What sport are you just horrible at?
Swimming. I suck at swimming.
Okay. So let's say we're going to give you the best swimming instructor in the world, and you're going to practice 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for the next 6 months. We're going to get you the most advanced swimming suit that the Olympians use that, costs thousands of dollars, the best in the world. And we're going to have you compete against a woman your age who competed as a Division I swimmer at university and continued. Okay. And we're going to dress her up the way they went swimming in freaking 1800, which is bulkier than all heck. Okay. And then we're going to have you race. Is all that training and all that super modification, is any of that going to make any difference whatsoever?
I'm still picturing myself still floundering in my year 7 swimming, where I swam half a lap and got out, didn't even finish the lap. And I've never done a lap since.
Yeah, your body's not designed for swimming. So let's look at the science. This is what schools are used to teaching right here.
Yeah.
There's almost nothing going on back here. How do you accommodate nothing?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we have to do is we have to shift forward to this. Well, we have 2.5 times the neural activity.
Yeah.
So we show students how to focus on that. What happens is once we get them using the overactive front part of the brain, we focus on the kid's speciality during the intervention period, because if you talk with an ADD, ADHD, or dyslexic kid, you move outside of their speciality, which is everything practically in school. Their motivation drops 75 to 90%. You will fail on that just alone. We focus on their speciality, get an audiobook and a book in that area. We don't teach them from the big picture to small details. We start off at a very specific point and slowly go out. And then we do word analysis followed by articulation, which is what this front part of the brain is.
That's exactly
you do that.
Right.
I have give you an example in the book that I'm having coming out in the next few months. It's called If You Write, You Can Read. My co-author is Evelyn Whitebay, who was on the New York State Dyslexia Task Force. Her name is Kimberly. We met on December 27th of 2024. A few weeks before, she spent $700 and had the state of Ohio test her kids. She's a very religious homeschooling mom with just a couple of college credits. All right.
Right.
She taught her 4 kids, Gen A kids, taught to read brilliantly with standard methods. Her 10-year-old son, Reed, was the exact opposite. He was reading at the 11th percentile, reading at the 4th percentile. I worked with her for half an hour a week for 8 months. She worked with Reed an hour and a half a week for 8 months. Most parents do 10 to 15-minute sessions.
Correct.
Over the summertime at 25, Reed's friends came to him and said, "We want you in public school to be with us in class." So beginning of August, called 8.5 months later, he was tested in a public school. Now, if Kimberly doubled or even tripled what he did, then he would still be placed in special ed, away from his friends, unhappy kid. Probably would have went back to homeschooling. That didn't happen. His reading went from the 11th percentile to the 64th. His writing went from the 4th percentile to the 65th. As of May of 2026, he was getting mainly A's and B's in all mainstream classes with his friends. What's my competition? I'll give you an example. It's the Windward Academy, the Upper East Side of Manhattan. They've been operating since you were a kid. They have literally a 98% success rate for $75,000 a year for 4 to 5 years just in tuition.
Wow. And that's USD, guys, let's put that into clarify.
Yes, that's
like
USD.
if you're in Australia, that's a lot of money. That's well over $100,000 fees.
And that's just
you
tuition.
Put it into
We're not
AUD.
talking about living expenses.
Wow. Like that's just not even.
Unless if you have a US, $500,000 sitting around, this isn't going to happen. Okay. Most parents can't afford that. And that takes 4 to 5 years. Kimberly did this in an hour and a half a week in 8 months. That's how powerful it is if you actually try to work with a dyslexic brain, how it's designed.
And you know what, though? Again, just bringing it back to a family who was living through cancer. It's what that gives the kid. It's not just reading and writing and comprehension. It's way more. It's the confidence. It's the way that they are then have, all I'm thinking of is because I have 5 sons, Russell. So, I've got children on spectrums and all of the, and everything in between. So I understand what you're saying, but I think it's, especially when that child is going through adversity themselves. And again, the worry on their shoulders. Like I think I've only just recently shared that I only found out that my son, who's now 20, he told me that, the boys would go to school and they'd be terrified that mum wasn't going to be there when they came home. And I only found out that like last year. And I just blew my mind that my kids had those thoughts, right? So we want to think about the families here and the children, the Jennifers who have dyslexia, who have learning ability issues. What this does when we start addressing, and I love the fact that you start at such a simple level because that is so my way of doing things. It is we start with the one thing and we layer it. What that does for the child, I think, in terms of being able to not just handle themselves, but handle and build the resilience muscle going through uncertainty, because it's not just and you know what, it's as an adult coping with uncertainty. It is unbelievable as the adult, let alone the children, especially when they're younger. And I mean, my Ollie was only 7 or 8 when I had breast cancer. So, I think that system, even for someone who is not dyslexic, but to turn on the frontal lobe, but use the parts that are needed. Wow. Like the change we could have in any child. I mean, I don't know if I'm talking out of my hat here, but yeah, wow. Have you seen that? I mean, did you see that with Jennifer when she moved through the program and the method?
Yeah, a big part of just to come back to when cancer's in remission in the parent. What I get from the parent is what they tell the kid is, listen, I can have a neighbor, I can have a family member, I can have a church member to come over and help with all this house crap. I want you to be able to read, to have a future. And so a lot of times parents will come to me and say, well, do you tutor individually? And I'll tell them, my rates are so high, you don't even want to think about it. But what we do is we show others how to do this.
Yeah.
And what would typically happen, and this will shock a lot of people, is, the parents going through the remission, they're just, all their finances are just totally towards that. And when it comes to how do we train this kid, and we don't have, $100K a year to put into it.
Yeah.
But what I'll tell them is, because a lot of people that I've worked with cancer were church members. And I would say what I'm looking for, and I don't mean to badmouth boys, but there was A neuroscientist I spoke to in Boston, they said in the teen years, girls are generally about 3 to 4 years more mature. It's
Right.
just seasonal. 90% of the time, it's girls that get the call for this. They will literally find like an AP English kid, who really knows how to relate to who they're working with, to their peers. And I'll just show them how to do this. Okay. And then
Wow.
they work with a kid. However, it takes longer than adults doing it, obviously. Nobody cares. And then what the kid can then show their parent is, I'm making real good improvement. And that's the biggest guilt that you can take away from the parent to help them get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I have had some churches in these situations, not just with cancer, but in other situations where this arises.
Yeah.
They will literally take a donation to pay the team.
Wow.
And they're asking the team, like, what do you want to get paid? And they actually lower their rate compared to what they want because of what it is. It usually comes out to about $10 an hour. So $500, $1,000 go a huge way towards solving this.
Wow. And the thing is, what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that when you're teaching, whether it be the teacher, whether it be the classmate, does that have a ripple effect across other children within the class, or is it just simply that one-on-one in terms of?
Oh no,
does it amplify? Is what I'm asking.
Yes, it amplifies a lot because they finally understand how it learns. And people ask me, well, does this work for normal kids? So just so you understand, after I presented in New York City, the professors came back to me and said, you had 2 students who scored the 70th percentile better than grad students from 8th grade. They said, we don't care. We want the craft of research. I was like, the craft of what? It's a book that sold over 1 million copies of how to do your doctoral dissertation.
Right.
So the most advanced Gen Ed kid I'm currently working with, his name is Grayson. Grayson is not dyslexic in the least. He's your typical 99th percentile math and science kid. And he wants to get his PhD, work at NASA to terraform Mars. So we have to get him published, which means we have to get him past a desk review, and then rejected by an actual reviewer. You miss a comma, you're rejected. Then to set him up with a senior scientist to say, here's what I was rejected. I need to work with you to fix this. Then he gets his PhD and all that fun stuff.
Right.
Grayson's father's teaching him. He's at the advanced paragraph level. How old do you think Grayson is? He's a bit on the young side.
I don't know. He'd have to be a teenager, wouldn't he?
We'll take a wild guess.
16? I don't know, because your schooling is different to ours.
Well, Grayson's 10.
No.
Yes. We're literally going through and teaching. Yeah, he's currently reading at the 12th grade level, think 18. His comprehension is at the third-year college level.
Wow.
So this works for everybody.
And and as I said, what keeps coming up for me as a mother of 5 and who has been through this and had the child having to deal with school at the same time as, go through adversity. I'll tell you a bit of a story. When we went to London in 2016 or 15, I think it might have been, look, now I've forgotten, 2000, and we had to homeschool, right? So I've got four of the boys are homeschooling. 8 weeks in, I quit. It was a debacle, Russell, because even as an educator, I don't know how to teach kids. And then they'd look at me and go, well, you're not my teacher, Mum. And so there was a lot of resistance. So with kids do you find that it's only the kids who want this, or can it actually work for kids who have that resistance around that, especially for the ones who have been crushed, the ones who know but have no idea how to articulate that they feel that they don't have what it takes?
Well, let me give you 2 examples. One is Alfred. He's that Gen Ed kid. He's a Gen Ed STEM kid, extremely bright. His mom asked him what he was interested in. He said, hawks, as hummingbirds. She's like, really? So then I create custom hawk thing for him. And he wanted at the 11th grade reading, 11th grade content-wise. Then the second one, he had some really obscure things he was interested in. I'm really advanced in artificial intelligence. So unlike everybody else, I have 3 editing modes. So my
Yeah,
documents are
yeah,
ready
me
to
too.
publish. So so I got him that, and he's on it like crazy. His mom's just like really confused. But for dyslexics, I'll give you my most crazy case. Her name is Casey. I never saw this before. This will answer your question exactly. I never met anybody like Casey before. I will never see this again. None of the hundreds of teachers I taught will ever see anything like this. This is a one-off edge case. Casey was 10 years old from a lower middle class family in the Midwest of the United States. She turned 11 over the summertime. She was interested in Theodore Roosevelt, reading at the second grade level, think a 7-year-old. So I assigned her this monster book, The
Oh,
Rise
wow.
of Theodore Roosevelt. 900 pages of it. This is 10th grade to first year college level, depending on who you ask, won the Pulitzer. Casey wanted to do reading first. Yes, I said you'll never even hear of anything like this again. I showed her a basic reading process. Nobody even suggested this. She goes up to her room, shuts the door for 3 hours a night for the next 6 months. Most of the day during the summertime. At the end of that, you could flip to this random page, point to that random word, and she would tell you the dictionary definition. She jumped 8 grade levels in 6 months, and I worked with her for 15 minutes a week.
Wow.
That was
My
because I
God.
was in her speciality. If you're in the
Yeah, so
speciality,
that's,
they're laser focused. If you step out, forget. Now, here's an interesting last thing about Casey. It was in October, November, I forget what it was. She was in her class, her solid reading class. The kids came over and took this massive book, just took it from her. They couldn't get past the first paragraph. None of them.
Of course.
Okay. And the teacher could flip it to any word in case we just say, yeah, here's the exact definition. And literally you look it up, there's almost essentially word for word what's in the dictionary.
Wow.
I get a call from her. They called her mom. Mom calls me. School was like, I thought your daughter had a severe reading problem. She's the best reader in the grade by grade levels. What happened? And her mom asked me about it. And I said, what do you think she's been doing in her bedroom? All 3 hours a night, school nights, 8-10 hours a day during the summer, every day. What do you think she's been doing? What allowed that to happen is in 5th grade, I literally went to her principal and I said, no more homework. If she flunks a test, she flunks a test. Who cares? You have to and you know what he said? He said, fine.
Wow.
We'll promote her anyway,
then.
based on what you're doing. He didn't want to social promote her anymore. He wanted the damn thing solved. And we solved it. But again, can anybody ever expect that from a 10 or 11-year-old girl? No. But that was Casey.
Right.
Wow. That's the speciality. That's how powerful that is.
Yeah, I love it. Now that leads me straight into my question now, which is for a parent listening right now who is managing their own cancer or they're supporting a partner through it, and they're trying to hold their child's world together at the same time. What's one thing that you would say to them and about what their child actually needs right now?
What you're going to find out from the child is they want to do something to help, and they don't know how. So what you have to do is there's a technique that I use called using a universal thing that if you contact me, I can tell you exactly what it is. And
well, maybe we could put a link in the show notes or something.
Yes. Yes. I'll have something written up to tell you exactly how to do this. Okay. What you have to do is you need to find a trusted person.
Yeah.
Usually a godfather or a godmother, somebody that just knows you both really well. And you have to go through that process and just allow your kid to do something to help. Okay. But what I can tell you is it is a completely different world if it's in remission I'm sorry. I'm just this is what I know. No, you speak.
Remember,
States.
Don't worry. It's not my. Remember, that's a Bron problem. It's not everyone else's problem.
If the cancer person knows it's terminal, they want to know that it's fixed. They want this fixed. Yeah. So best thing to do is to contact me. You need to select a person to teach the kid.
Yes.
At the very minimum, it's a 14 or older kid, normally a girl, that you trust implicitly, who's 14 going on 40 maturity-wise. Excellent English person, knows how to relate. And we can, preferably college student, preferably after that an adult. Okay?
Yeah.
We can show them how to do this. Okay? And literally, as I gave you an example of Grayson, we go all the way up to the doctoral level.
You did.
Okay. So we can show you any one of those, and then the parent can know that this will be taken care of. If it's in remission, typically, or it's going to, the parent's going to be around 20 years from now. Typically, what we have to communicate to the kid is the parents want this solved. What the parents need to understand is there are two pathways your kids can go. One is they're going to go into a traditional university, which really means for virtually all of them, they're going to get a master's degree. Or they're the head and hands. They like working with their hands. They're good with their head. That's a 2-year degree, generally represented by becoming an electrician, auto mechanic, plumber, that sort of thing. And we have a certain number of courses we need to get them through for each one.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to tell me which one that is, and then we can show you how to take care of this. And then once you can see steady, real progress, remember, Kimberly solved this in 8.5 months.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
So you can start seeing that progress, and that helps out a lot. But you need to understand your kid's going to want to do something to help you. All right. Yeah. And there's a process I'll send you on how to do that.
Yeah. I loved what you said earlier on about writing down those things, typing them, and then popping it into GPT. I think that is gold in terms of being able to help a child find language and being able to articulate what they're feeling and thinking. Like you cannot put a price on that.
Well, here's what I can do.
The gift for the child, because they can feel empowered.
Yeah, but that was a few minutes I talked on a podcast. What I can do is I can send you a written document by this time tomorrow that explains how to do that far better.
Oh, I'd love that. Well, our audience will love that. So that would be amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the support of our people, because this is just, again, Serenity Project. It's the third space between science and soul with evidence and perspective. You're the evidence and perspective, and you are in that third space. We support the same people, and I just love that. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. I love the work that you're doing.
No, thank you. Now, one last question, which I ask everybody. Obviously, everyone knows the word serenity is mine. And of course, that's the word I use to describe the serenity moments of my place of, being where your feet are, that's what my book's been called too. I've got a book coming out too. But besides all of that, it's my word for serenity now, or in the moment. What word would you use for
clarity? How
you would describe serenity for you?
Clarity.
Clarity.
You have to be clear on why you were put on this earth and what we're going to do with the time that we have here. And when you're talking about kids whose parents are dealing with cancer, they need clarity. Both of them do. And for the kid, what they can do to support their parents, for what they can do to, let me give you an example. This is one of the few failed cases I've had in my life, and it has nothing to do with cancer, but the pain of the parent can illustrate this. Mom's a successful real estate agent. Dad's retired head of the fire department. They had a very nice income. Their son was severely dyslexic. It was at the State University of New York at Albany. Professor wanted a kid in a doctoral program. And he would have said he probably wasn't good enough to teach, but he could have got him a job in industry. Wanted to work with a kid because he was a freaking genius. But the writing was a problem. Right. I just take him through my original program. I gave a very big no to the parent because they could afford it. And they didn't want the kid to be a failure to launch. He was 27.
Wow.
He wouldn't do the work. The kid's now 37. Mom should be retired, but she's still selling homes. And even in this horrible market, she's doing very well. Dad is saving up his pet. They don't know what to do with him. He just won't do the work so that SUNY Albany could take care of the mess. And the worry of those parents. The guy was 27 when I started. I don't know. I don't provide motivation. Parents can provide motivation for kids, but not to a full-grown man. Yeah. And the worry on that is just extraordinary. Yeah. And that's because he's too lazy to do the work. And that's literally what the mom told me. I'm using her words.
Yeah.
And the professor's about to retire and he still wants to work with him. and he's sitting home playing video games all day.
Right.
Okay. What I found with parents, what they wanted to communicate was, when they know it's terminal, is they wanted the kid to promise that they would do the work and be okay.
Yeah.
And they give it. Period. After they recovered from the funeral, nobody really does, but once it's not as stinging. The work those kids put in.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to pull back the teachers sometimes to rein the kid in, because they just wanted to do 2 years of work in like 2 weeks. And that's not how this works.
Yeah.
So,
right.
but it's, how do we communicate? And this is the document I'm going to create for you. How do we communicate this through clarity to the kid and to the parent? That's what we have to look at. So, and I hate to tell you, this is not going to be a short document. It's going to be dozens of pages.
But I love that. And you know what? I'm so honored that you will even do this for us. Thank you. Now,
yes.
I want to thank you, because we're getting up to time here. I'm going to be putting all your links and all of that information in the show notes, so everyone will know where to find you. We'll make sure that we've got all of those links correct, so you can just come and talk to Russell. If you are a family member, if you have a child who is living through the adversity in your house of cancer, Russell is your guy. So I want to thank you for being here, and thank you for being part of Serenity Project. And I really want to thank you and honor you for your time today. And for our listeners, thanks again for you guys being here. You are awesome. We are now in over 27 countries, so I'm pretty excited for a relatively new podcast. So thanks for that. Keep listening, keep sharing, and we will see you on the next episode. But thanks again, Russell.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been great having you here. And what I would love you to do is leave a comment or ask a question using my fan link below this episode and on every episode that we post. I would love to hear your thoughts, your questions, and I'll get back to you. Have a great day, and bye for now.